Part 50. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 491. Compared to Lian Nishang, Dan Lao's gaze didn't seem so scary. But after all, he was in the nascent soul stage, and the pressure came naturally. Just these few words made Zuyun feel boundless pressure. Reply Dan Lao. Zuyun felt almost out of breath, and spoke incoherently. I saw, Fairy Lian just went in. Facing Lian Nishang, Zuyun could turn his head away to avoid her gaze. But Dan Lao's pressure was everywhere. At this time, a strong disdainful voice came, and Zuyun felt that the pressure suddenly disappeared. He looked up and saw that it was Dan Lao who turned back. He looked at Lian Nishang with a smile on his face. Invisibly, he helped Zuyun out of the siege. However, Lian Nishang looked contemptuous, and the follow-up words followed. You didn't dare to look at this fairy just now, and now you are secretly looking at me. Zuyun was speechless, and he couldn't respond to this. So, he lowered his head again. Humph, this fairy is asking you a question. Lian Nishang was angry, stretched out her right leg and kicked towards Zuyun. Zuyun was even angrier. This Lian Nishang was completely unreasonable. Just when he was about to respond, he didn't expect a real wall of fire to appear out of thin air in front of him. Bang! The white and beautiful legs under the long skirt seemed to kick against an iron plate. Zuyun was stunned. Dan Lao helped me. But the next words made Zuyun's heart suddenly shocked, secretly thinking that Dan Lao definitely had bad intentions. Nishang, after all, she is my person, don't get hurt, she is very useful. Openly, there is nothing unexpected about this sentence literally. But the hidden meaning in the words, Zuyun felt that it was wrong. Abnormal. Very abnormal. His status with Huo Maoang is indeed very low. Not to mention the identity of the disciples of the Foreign Affairs Hall. Even if he really became a member of the Dan Pavilion, his status is not as good as Lian Nishang. But Dan Lao, he took action to protect himself. And he also said that it would be very useful. If there is no conspiracy, my name, Zuyun, would be written backwards. Then, will we still go to get the ice spirit grass? But for the ice spirit grass, Huo Maoang is enough. Zuyun recalled the scene that happened in the Foreign Affairs Hall at that time. He was able to enter the Dan Pavilion because of Huo Maoang's plea. At that time, Huo Maoang was still complacent, thinking that he had turned the tables with Zuyun. But now thinking back, everything is so unreasonable. The world is bustling, all for profit. So what kind of benefits can Huo Maoang and I bring to Dan Lao? At this time, the fire wall dissipated, and Zuyun hurriedly said to Elder Dan, "Thank you, Elder Dan." "Humph, if you want to thank me, just do what I ordered in the future." After that, he turned to Lian Nishang and said, "I thought there was something wrong. These two guys will be members of the Dan Pavilion in the future. Don't bully them if you have nothing to do, and don't let the people in other halls bully them. Do you understand?" Lian Nishang curled her lips, as if she was a little dissatisfied, but seeing that Elder Dan had a serious expression when he spoke, she helped Zuyun not to teach him a lesson, so she had to agree. Elder Dan smiled, turned to look at the injured Huo Maoang, took out 2 bottles of pills from his arms, threw them to the 2 of them, and said, "This is the fire dragon pill. There is nothing to do these few days, you can practice with peace of mind. Remember, don't leave the range of the Dan Pavilion for the time being, remember." Huo Maoang was overjoyed when he heard this. He didn't expect to receive the fire dragon pill so soon, and he thanked him repeatedly. Zuyun was doubtful and took the pill. No matter how many questions there are, it is impossible to express them at this time. Okay, I still need to continue to comprehend the way of alchemy. Nishang, come with me. Yes, master. Lian Nishang followed the old alchemist into the cave. After a while, Huo Maoang laughed and took the stopper from the porcelain bottle. He put it to his nose and took a deep sniff, and his face showed an extremely enjoyable expression. This fire dragon pill is really delicious. After a few breaths, Huo Maoang put the stopper back into the bottle and reluctantly put away the pill. Zuyun raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "Why, you don't want to take the pill? Take the pill." Huo Maoang looked at him like a fool and said, "This pill has a market value of 10,000 spirit stones. If I have the opportunity to sell it, as long as I put the name of Dan Lao, I can sell it for at least 20% to 30% more. In exchange for spirit stones, isn't it better?" Zuyun frowned and said, "Are you so short of spirit stones? This bottle of pills has at least more than 10 fire dragon pills. More than 100,000 is enough for you to buy a shop in some cities, right? Spirit stones, of course, the more the better." Huo Maoang seemed to be preaching, saying, "Senior brother Xianxia, you have entered the fire dragon sect since you were a child, but you don't know how hard our lives are for those of us who are disciples of the Foreign Affairs Hall who entered the mountain gate as casual cultivators. Not to mention competing with wild dogs for food, but for a piece of spirit stone, killing and robbing are common things. You don't understand the preciousness of spirit stones." Zuyun was immediately surprised. He didn't expect that Huo Maoang came in as a casual cultivator. When he first came to Peepa Realm, he knew that the major sects were in great need of people. But he didn't know why Peepa Realm, a place with outstanding people and beautiful scenery, was like this. He didn't ask. Thinking about it carefully, Yan Laoxi even wanted to introduce himself to the section. No wonder he asked me to say that I was his distant relative and not to reveal that I was from Yao realm. What's the connection between them? Shaking his head, Zuyun poured a fire dragon pill on his palm. Now I don't know what kind of medicine is sold in the elixir gourd, so nothing can happen to Huo Maoang. The sooner he recovers, the better for himself. But just by looking at it, Zuyun felt that something was wrong with this fire dragon pill. "Senior brother Xianxia, you are so willing. I can't even bear to use a pill to heal my wounds. You take it out now and eat it like jelly beans." Huo Maoang thought Zuyun wanted to take it himself. Zuyun shook his head and said with a smile, "If you are not willing to eat it yourself, then I will treat you to one as a reward for taking me to heaven." Before handing it out, Zuyun felt that something was wrong with the pill. He just put the fire dragon pill under his nose, but he didn't expect Huo Maoang to suddenly reach out and take the pill directly from Zuyun's hand. He stuffed it into his mouth all at once. Zuyun was shocked. Huo Maoang said loudly, "Thank you so much, senior brother Xianxia." After saying that, he sat directly on the ground and began to refine the medicinal power to heal his injuries. Zuyun was extremely helpless, but he also had troubles that he couldn't express. "You can't tell Huo Maoang that you found something wrong with the fire dragon pill, right?" Then if Huo Maoang asked, how could he explain? "Say I have seen a real fire dragon pill? Where did you see it? Who did you meet it from?" Zuyun couldn't answer at all. Sighing, Zuyun poured another one into his palm and smelled it carefully. This time, he discovered that this fire dragon pill was more elixir than the fire dragon pill he had taken before. However, with this taste, I can't tell what kind of elixir is added and what effect it has. What on earth does Dan Lao want them to do? Zuyun looked at the fire dragon pill in his hand solemnly and stuffed it back into the bottle. After glancing at Huo Maoang, he turned around and walked towards the small courtyard and entered the side wooden house. At this time, in the cave, Lian Nishang frowned and asked, "Master, do you want to use them to refine the realm-breaking pill?" "That's right," Elder Dan said with a smile, "the boy who helped me get the ice spirit grass actually possesses spiritual fire. It's definitely good to use him as a medicine guide. As for the other boy, the fire spiritual power in him extremely pure and unique. One is the furnace, the other is the guide, and it will definitely help you refine the realm-breaking elixir. When you become an infant, the treasure in the secret realm will be at your fingertips. Master, didn't you say that in the secret realm of the Book of Heaven, nascent soul can't enter? Moreover, using people as a guide, I will use this elixir. Lian Nishang hesitated. Humph, my good disciple. Elder Dan's expression became solemn and he said, let's not mention the matter of the secret realm for the time being. But you must take the realm-breaking pill. 2 mere handyman disciples with no background can be the introduction to the medicine for your breakthrough. It is because they cultivate this it's a great honor in a lifetime. Why, do you care about how you feel when you refine the elixir? Master, I've been stuck in this state for a long time, and I don't think it can be solved by the state-breaking pill. Please don't use anyone to make the pill. Lian Nishang requested. Humph, Mr. Dan said angrily, Lian Nishang. How long did it take for me to prepare for your realm-breaking elixir? I finally thought of a good idea, but you told me not to practice it. Don't do this again. Mention. In short, just wait for Shishi's realm-breaking elixir. Okay, go out now and protect those 2 boys. Otherwise, don't blame Shishi for not caring about master and disciple. Love. Having said that, Elder Dan waved his hand, and Lian Nishang was fanned straight out of the cave. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 492. Have you taken the fire dragon pill? Lian Nishang came out of the cave and immediately saw Huo Maoang who was sitting there practicing and healing, and immediately interrupted. Huo Maoang immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and looked up to see Lian Nishang, whose face was as cold as ice. Fairy Lian, what does this mean? The interruption of the healing not only caused all the power of the fire dragon pill in his body to dissipate, but also caused some injuries that he had finally recovered to suffer from spiritual backlash. In comparison, it is aggravated. These 2 are secondary. What was important to him was that his fire dragon pill, which was worth more than 10,000 spiritual stones, was wasted. He feels bad. Humph, it's not interesting. I see you're unhappy. Get out of here. Lian Nishang stepped forward, slapped Huo Maoang again, and slapped him directly into the yard. He left without caring about Huo Maoang's life or death. Oh, God is so unkind. Huo Maoang yelled in the courtyard, mentally greeting the whole family who were practicing their colorful clothes 18 times. Until Zuyun opened the door and helped him up again. Senior brother Chinjua, tell me, how can there be such a truth? Huo Maoang ignored the pain in his body and complained to Zuyun. Zuyun was also extremely speechless, but he was even more confused in his heart. After he finished his work in the house, he kept staring at Huo Maoang through the crack of the window with his void-breaking eyes technique to see what changes would happen after taking the problematic fire dragon pill. Before he could see it, he was interrupted by Lian Nishang. What a coincidence! He saw that Lian Nishang's palm just now was used extremely delicately. Not only did it interrupt Huo Maoang's process of healing and refining the medicinal power, but it also forced all the medicinal power out of his body. He didn't know whether this was done intentionally by Lian Nishang or unintentionally. If it was done intentionally, what was the reason? Zuyun was puzzled, but he couldn't ask Lian Nishang for confirmation. But despite this, things have not become simple. All we can say is that Dan Lao really has a conspiracy against them. Where are the available points? Zuyun couldn't guess what Elder Elixir's purpose was at all, so he just decided to take one step and see what happened. Okay, stop yelling, aren't you afraid that Fairy Lian will come back and beat you up again? Hearing this, Huo Maoang couldn't help but shrink his neck, a flash of hatred flashed in his eyes, but more of it was fear. Let's not talk about the gap in strength. Just in terms of identity, the two of them are completely different. Lian Nishang has a back view, but he only has a back view. It's really too difficult. With a sigh, Huo Maoang reluctantly took out a fire dragon pill from his porcelain bottle. The feeling of being neither up nor down just now made him extremely uncomfortable now. Zhu Yun shook his head and said, "You'd better take mine." After saying that, he poured out a fire dragon pill from himself and handed it over. This. Huo Maoang, who was greedy for money, hesitated at this moment. "Take it, it's important for you to heal your wounds. Besides, I took a lot of spiritual stones from you before." Zhu Yun persuaded. "Senior brother Xianxia, you are so kind to me." Huo Maoang just needed 2 more tears to exaggerate his mood at this time. But the movements in his hands were not slow at all. He stuffed his fire dragon pill into the porcelain bottle, and the next moment, the pill in Zhu Yun's hand entered his mouth. "Senior brother Xianxia, you will be my true senior brother from now on." Huo Maoang patted his chest and made a thumping sound, then sat directly on the ground and began to heal his wounds. Zhu Yun sighed lightly. If Lian Nishang hadn't interrupted, maybe he could see what would happen after Huo Maoang finished refining. But now, it is no longer visible. I don't know if this move is a good thing for him. Zhu Yun pushed the door open and walked outside, but he never thought that he would see Lian Nishang in the distance. She is gone, but not far away. I saw her standing quietly on the mountainside, looking at the terraces at the foot of the mountain. As if she felt someone looking at her, Lian Nishang immediately turned her head. This feels pretty awesome. Zhu Yun's pupils shrank and he removed the void-breaking spirit eye technique. Unexpectedly, Lian Nishang turned into a ball of fire and ran towards him. After a while, Lian Nishang looked at Zhu Yun with sharp eyes. "I need some pills, lend me your fire dragon pill." His tone was unreasonable and extremely overbearing. Zhu Yun's pupils shrank and said, "I lent it to you, what if you don't pay it back?" He took a few steps back and was right against the wooden door. "Don't want to borrow it? I, Lian Nishang, have never borrowed anything from anyone, and no one has ever dared not to borrow it. Bring it." As he spoke, Lian Nishang's tone suddenly increased. "No. Do you believe I will beat you?" After saying this, a flame quickly appeared on Lian Nishang's body. The pure fire power was even more pure than Zhu Yun's, tempered by the fire spirit bead. It seems that Huo Xianxia is right, Lian Nishang is really a genius. If you beat me, I won't give it to you. This is a reward given to us by Dr. We can't give it to you. Zhu Yun is also very tough. Humph, if you don't eat the toast, you'll have to drink wine as a penalty. As soon as he finished speaking, Lian Nishang slapped Zhu Yun in the face. Zhu Yun didn't expect that Lian Nishang would do it right away. Before entering the Fire Dragon sect, Zhu Yun had always planned not to take action if he could, and to kill people if he did. But who would have thought that he would meet such a domineering woman? If it was an incense stick ago, he could have given her the Fire Dragon pill. But the problem is, when he entered the house earlier, he had already swapped the Fire Dragon pill. The Fire Dragon pill on his body at this time was a normal Fire Dragon pill, which was the top quality Fire Dragon pill that Yan Laoxi originally wanted to give him as a gift. What if he gave it to Lian Nishang? Zhu Yun was complaining in his heart. It was not right to give it, and it was not right not to give it. He didn't want to fight with Lian Nishang. In desperation, Zhu Yun had to use the Chang Shengju, and dodged Lian Nishang's palm with agility and weirdness. "Huh? What's your move?" Lian Nishang's palm missed, and she looked at Zhu Yun with an incredible face. "Fairy Lian, if you force me again, I will go into the cave." Zhu Yun didn't dare to respond directly, and quickly pointed to the cave and said, "Now, the only one who can suppress her is probably Dan Lao, right? Unless what Elder Dan said before, that they were very useful, was a lie. But obviously, this is impossible. You dare. Seeing that Zhu Yun dared to threaten her, Lian Nishang was furious. Under her long skirt, flames rose and flew towards Zhu Yun. Zhu Yun's eyes shrank. What was going on with Lian Nishang? Why did she have to take his fire dragon pill? If she knew that the fire dragon pill was wrong, what was the purpose of taking it away? But if she didn't know, with her identity, let alone asking Elder Dan for the fire dragon pill, wouldn't she be able to refine it herself? In this case, if she knew that there was something wrong with the fire dragon pill, it would be even more impossible for her to give it to her. And she couldn't go to Elder Dan. Thinking of this, Zhu Yun didn't say anything, and ran towards the medicine garden with the Changshengju. Humph. Lian Nishang's beautiful eyes flashed, but the fiery eyes returned to normal, and she chased Zhu Yun closely. Although she usually doesn't care much about the affairs of the Fire Dragon sect, she also knows that such exquisite body movements, how could it be possible for a disciple of the Foreign Affairs Hall to have such exquisite body movements? For a moment, she forgot the purpose of taking Zhu Yun's fire dragon pill, and kept staring at Zhu Yun's footsteps. Originally, she wanted to slow down so that she could see more carefully. But after a while, she felt something was wrong. She wanted to see more clearly, but her speed could not keep up with Zhu Yun. But she wanted to follow Zhu Yun, but she couldn't see his footsteps clearly. She didn't know that Zhu Yun's footsteps looked nothing special, and they were evolved from the skills of mortals by Zhu Yun. The mystery lies in the chaotic power. As a cultivator with a single fire spiritual root, how could she understand the principle of combining 5 spiritual powers into one even if she was gifted? This servant is quite good at escaping. Why didn't I notice such a person in the Foreign Affairs Hall before? Lian Nishang decided to catch up with Zhu Yun first. With her own strength, she could force Zhu Yun to walk in front of her. Wouldn't it be clearer? Thinking of this, Lian Nishang's figure flashed and turned into a ball of fire. Her speed also increased suddenly, and she suddenly blocked Zhu Yun. Is this, the fire dragon sect's fire escape method? Looking at the ball of fire in front of him, and suddenly turned into a graceful woman, Zhu Yun remembered the news about the skills that Huo Qinjue had said, and recognized it immediately. However, he didn't have time to think about it. Lian Nishang's hands were already dancing, and he didn't know what kind of magic she was going to use. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 493. Zhu Yun didn't want to get entangled with Lian Nishang, so he flashed and slipped under her waving hand in an extremely weird posture. The speed is as fast as lightning and flint. But he never thought that Lian Nishang didn't pay attention at all. On the contrary, when Zhu Yun passed by, he caught a glimpse of a formation pattern in the corner of his eye. Is this a formation? While he was hesitating, a ring of fire appeared directly from the ground within a 30-step radius with Lian Nishang as the center. Whoops! The rising fire continued to extend toward the sky, and finally connected together to form a semicircular fire shield, trapping him and Lian Nishang in it. Don't you like to show off your skills? Come on, it's such a big place, let's show off as you like. Lian Nishang turned around with a joking smile on her face, looked at Zhu Yun and said. Showing off. Zhu Yun's face darkened. He could tell that this was a formation. However, he could not see the mystery of this formation. All the formation patterns were burning with flames at this time. If you can't see through the formation patterns, then you can't break the formation. Unless it is broken open by force. Come on, please start your performance. Lian Nishang stretched out her hand and made a gesture of invitation. She felt that she had already convinced Zhu Yun. Do you want to know my movement skills? After coming back to his senses, Zuyun knew what Lian Nishang was thinking, but it would not go as she wished. Certainly. Lian Nishang is also straightforward and doesn't shy away from anything. Zuyun spread his hands. What if I say no? Lian Nishang said lightly, if you say no, then I will trap you here. I believe you know how powerful this fairy is. Zuyun raised his eyebrows and said, aren't you afraid if I call someone at this time? The implication was that he was threatening Lian Nishang, and he would call Elder Elixir to come over. Giggle, giggle, who would have thought that Lian Nishang immediately smiled sweetly and said, this is the trapped fire formation. I hired an formation master to tailor it specially for me. So, I can tell you, no one will hear her even if she shouts. And even if my master comes out, she will only think that I am practicing the formation, and will never think that you are trapped in the formation by me. So, what do you think? I see. Zuyun suddenly realized where Lian Nishang's confidence came from. This formation is indeed mysterious and has merits. Use pure fire power to cover up the array pattern. As long as the fire power is strong enough, spiritual consciousness cannot penetrate it. It's a good way to kill people and silence them, and to cheat and kill people. In this case, there are some words that I am not afraid of being heard by Elder Dan. Zuyun grinned and said straight to the point, is the fire dragon pill poisonous? You. Lian Nishang's smile suddenly solidified. She never expected that Zuyun not only changed the topic, but also talked about something she didn't dare to think about. At the same time, she also remembered that she was chasing this disciple of the Foreign Affairs Hall. Wasn't it because she wanted to exchange his fire dragon pill? How do you know? Lian Nishang stared at Zuyun. After a long time, she suppressed the excitement in her heart and asked coldly. There are many people who practice alchemy in the fire dragon sect. But not everyone is qualified to have access to the prescription of fire dragon pill. Moreover, the rules within the fire dragon sect are very strict, and it is impossible for high-quality elixirs like the fire dragon pill to be leaked privately. Of course, even the Internal Affairs Hall is not qualified to learn the recipe for fire dragon pill. An ordinary disciple of the Foreign Affairs Hall was admitted into the Den Pavilion by his master today. Even if his master taught him how to refine the fire dragon pill, how could he know the problem with the fire dragon pill? This is incredible. You don't have to worry about how I know. Zuyun also changed his face. He knew very well that this was the best time to deal with Lian Nishang. If you miss this opportunity, you may never have it again. However, he would not kill Lian Nishang unless absolutely necessary. But if he can get Lian Nishang as the only one in the formation and tie her to his own boat, then the benefits to him will be even greater. The refining fairy of Dan Pavilion, this is a big background. That's why he didn't show any pretense and shocked Lian Nishang first when he opened his mouth. At this point, the effect seems to be good. Zuyun took advantage of Lian Nishang's lack of time to analyze the situation, and struck while the iron was hot. I can make alchemy, and I happen to have an authentic fire dragon pill with me, so I smell something wrong in it. Lian Nishang said coldly, each alchemist has different refining techniques, which will cause the refined elixirs to be slightly different. This does not mean anything. If that's the case, then why do you want to borrow the elixir from me? Zuyun narrowed his eyes and said aggressively, you obviously want to take this elixir away, and when you finally return it to me, you will replace it with a normal elixir. Fairy Lian, although I, Huo Qinjua, am just a foreign affairs official, a disciple who has been walking around all year round, his eyes are quite vicious. Apart from anything else, I don't believe that you, a disciple of Elder Dan, don't have a fire dragon pill on his body. As soon as he said this, Lian Nishang knew where Zuyun's suspicion came from. Really? Everything she did was disguised. It seemed like she was venting her anger and showing her unreasonable dominance. But when the other party can recognize that there is something wrong with the pill, it becomes a bit obvious. Suddenly, Lian Nishang fell silent. Because she knew the truth of the matter, and she also knew the purpose of the elixir added to the fire dragon pill. But she couldn't say. Once the news spreads, I'm afraid that the three factions in the sect will regard Dan Lao as the target of public criticism. Only at this time, the sect is already undercurrent. In addition to the death of Yan Laoxi, there is also a fight with the Yao Sheng Zone. Although, it is still on the way to the crusade. But there are only two results: success or failure. There will always be a party that will use this as an excuse to gain benefits. Zhu Yun knew that he couldn't give Lian Nishang a chance to think at this time. Of course, he didn't know what Lian Nishang was worried about. He thought she just wanted to help her master. Dan Lao was hiding something, so he took advantage of the victory and asked, "Fairy Lian, Huo Maoang and I practiced peacefully and devoted ourselves to the section. We were ecstatic to join the Dan Pavilion, but we didn't expect to be treated like this. Fortunately, Fairy Lian is kind and doesn't want us to take this pill. Huo Qinjua thanks us in advance." Zhu Yun said, and put on another high hat. "If you can avoid fighting, don't fight." He was sure to kill Lian Nishang, but he was not sure not to show any movement. He could easily break this fire trap. As long as the Chaos Sword was used, he would have countless ways. But this was one of his trump cards, just like the burning sky flame. Not to mention, Lian Nishang's move was to prevent them from taking the problematic fire dragon pill. He still knew what was right and what was wrong. "Your name is Huo Qinjua, right?" At this time, Lian Nishang finally spoke, but his words were shocking. "If you can, leave the Dan Pavilion. No, just leave the Fire Dragon sect, take that Huo Maoang with you." Zhu Yun stared straight into Lian Nishang's eyes until she lowered her head and dared not look at him. Then Zhu Yun said, "I didn't have a hard time climbing from the Foreign Affairs Hall to the Dan Pavilion, why do I have to leave again?" Although he asked this, in fact, Zhu Yun also understood the pros and cons. Lian Nishang looked like she had compromised, but in fact, she was still protecting Dan Lao. However, he wanted Zhu Yun and the others to leave as a solution that would kill two birds with one stone. "This pill will kill us, right? Fairy Lian, have you ever thought about this question? If you don't want innocent disciples to die, then even if we leave, there will be other disciples chosen by Master Dan. For us, we are grateful that you saved our lives. But for you, what's the difference? Do you need to drive away every disciple who enters the Dan Pavilion?" Zhu Yun's words made Lian Nishang suddenly realize. "Yes, I let them go, but will Master give up using people to refine special realm-breaking pills?" Lian Nishang smiled bitterly, but soon he remembered what Elder Dan said, and said, "It's different. Not every disciple will be favored by the Master. You two are still different from other disciples. Fairy Lian, you want to save us, but you want to conceal Elder Dan's crime. According to the sect's rules, fellow disciples cannot kill each other, otherwise they will be killed without mercy. Elder Dan is an elder of the sect, and this action is also a violation of the sect's rules, right?" Zhu Yun stepped forward and said righteously. You. For a moment, Lian Nishang was a little flustered and blurted out, "Don't push me too far. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 494. Fairy Lian, I'm not forcing you. In fact, you are forcing yourself. Zhu Yun chose to give in when Lian Nishang was almost going crazy. When the enemy advances, we retreat, when the enemy retreats, we advance. He knew not to push too hard, otherwise it would have the opposite effect. Irritating Lian Nishang would only make things more difficult for him. "You're talking nonsense, you're obviously forcing me to tell the truth." Lian Nishang still maintained some sense and shouted in a low voice. "I didn't ask you to tell the truth, Fairy Lian. You need to figure out one fact. From beginning to end, I didn't ask you for any confirmation, and I don't need to ask for confirmation. Zhu Yun shook his head. With such words, Lian Nishang's roar seemed to be directed at a bottomless abyss, with no echo at all. It was more like a punch to cotton. She was a little discouraged, but she didn't know why. Then why? Lian Nishang asked. No reason, Zhu Yun continued to shake his head and said, when I enter the Den Pavilion, I just want to learn a more profound way of cultivation. Whether it is a way of cultivation or a way of refining alchemy. Since this fire dragon pill is harmful, then I just don't swallow it. After saying that, he took out a porcelain bottle from his arms and threw it to Lian Nishang. Lian Nishang subconsciously caught it and felt happy for no reason. After talking for so long, he finally gave the fire dragon pill to himself. Moreover, listening to his words, it seemed that he knew what he was saying and would not fall for the master's teachings. This is in line with her original intention. However, when Lian Nishang poured a fire dragon pill into his palm, the uncontrollable smile on his face froze once again. After a while, she exclaimed, "This is not my master's fire dragon pill." After she finished shouting, she looked at Zhu Yun in disbelief, only to see a meaningful smile on her face. Huachenghua. How could you, an ordinary Foreign Affairs Hall disciple, have the fire dragon pill refined by Elder Yan Laoxi? These words greatly exceeded Zhu Yun's expectations. He never expected that Lian Nishang could actually recognize who made this fire dragon pill. Although, he didn't know that this elixir was refined by Yan Laoxi. If it were normal, Zhu Yun could naturally explain it at will. But the key is, at this time, there was a rumor in the Fire Dragon sect that Yan Laoxi died in the hands of Yuz Haibai, the demon control saint sect. In fact, all the disciples of the Internal Affairs Hall left under the leadership of several elders. There was no way he could make up lies at will to fool Lian Nishang. Lian Nishang is not stupid, otherwise he would never be in this situation. In the Peeper realm, if an ordinary monk has a chance to practice, even if his talent is not good enough, it will not be difficult at the Den formation stage, let alone letting nature take its course. But the alchemist. Is it possible for an ordinary person to be able to smell what someone is practicing? At least Zhu Yun can't recognize it now. Tell me. Why do you have Yan Laoxi's elixir on you? Lian Nishang, who was still confused just now, suddenly became fierce and angry, and his free hand raised a flame. As long as Zhu Yun's answer dissatisfies her, she will take action immediately. Originally, she didn't want to hurt Zhu Yun just because Zhu Yun was a weak and ordinary disciple of the Foreign Affairs Hall. But having a relationship with Yan Laoxi, the matter is not simple. Seeing Lian Nishang approaching step by step, Zhu Yun had an idea and thought of a countermeasure. This, Fairy Lian, please forgive me for not hiding it on purpose. As he spoke, he pretended to be helpless and sighed. Sure enough, Lian Nishang was stunned and stopped at the same time. However, the fire in his hands has not dissipated. How do you say this? Between her eyes, the pupils turned into the shape of flames again. Zhu Yun secretly guessed that this must be related to the technique she practiced. I just don't know what the use is. But obviously, this was not the right time. Zhu Yun sorted out his thoughts and said, Fairy Lian doesn't know something. In fact, I am a distant relative of Elder Yan Laoxi. It was because he was in the Fire Dragon sect back then. So I joined in. A relative of Yan Laoxi. Lian Nishang looked puzzled, but soon she frowned and said coldly, if you are his relative, why didn't he take care of you? Fairy Lian, what you said is wrong. Zhu Yun shook his head repeatedly and said, you also know the situation in the section. If he takes care of me and is seen by someone who cares about me, what will he say? I am a young monk, it is enough to die, but Elder Yan, the path to immortality is ruined. What you said, is true. A large sect like the Fire Dragon sect will still abide by the rules on the surface. Otherwise, if someone catches you, it will be very bad. What Zhu Yun said was reasonable and reasonable. The reason why he did not reveal the problem with the fire dragon pill was also based on this consideration, for fear that Elder Dan would be kicked out because of this. Not to mention whether she can practice with peace of mind in the future, or whether she can continue to stay in the fire dragon sect, it is still a question. There were just some things she couldn't say to Zhu Yun. It was a matter of personal secrets, not to mention that Zhu Yun was still an ordinary handyman in her eyes. So, Zhu Yun rolled his eyes and said, Elder Yan has taken good care of me. In fact, my ability to make alchemy and make tools was taught by Elder Yan. So, you learned to identify fire dragon pills. Lian Nishang interrupted Zhu Yun's words at the right time. But Zhu Yun denied it flatly, because he knew that if he could refine the fire dragon pill, it would be equivalent to breaking the sex rules. Start learning now, it won't be a problem. Because he now belongs to Dan Pavilion and his level is high enough. But before, even if he was promoted to the Internal Affairs Hall, it was not enough. I can identify the fire dragon pill because I have this fire dragon pill. The two tastes are different. The reason why I can tell the difference is because I smell it. This skill can be mastered by relatively high-level alchemists. Zhu Yun's alchemy level actually far surpassed the disciples of the Fire Dragon sect's Internal Affairs Hall. After all, Sun Suanhua gained a lot of skills and laid a solid foundation. They have also put some effort into growing elixirs. Although there are not many opportunities to practice planting elixirs, his ability to recognize and smell medicines is not weak. I didn't expect it to be like this. Lian Nishang already believed Zhu Yun's words, nodded, and asked, if you can prove that you are a relative of Yan Laoxi, then I will ensure that you are fine. Even my master, Mr. Dan, will not do it again let you swallow this problematic fire dragon pill. Listening to the vows, Zhu Yun hesitated a little in his heart, but refused. Lian Nishang was confused and tilted his head, realizing that he seemed to be unable to understand Zhu Yun. Aren't you afraid that you will die if you take the elixir? She asked in a deep voice, feeling a little dissatisfied at the same time. After all the efforts of the boss, I was able to save his life in the end, but he refused. Fairy Lian, Zhu Yun sighed deliberately and said, Elder Yan is dead. If it is revealed that I am a relative of Elder Yan at this time, do you think, what will other people in the sect think? Although, I have something to prove, but, that is the only relic left to me by Elder Yan, and I don't want to be remembered. Lian Nishang realized it now and felt that she had not considered it well. Indeed, in this situation, I am not appropriate enough. It is true that Zhu Yun can be saved, but the things in his hands cannot be saved. Presumably, many people will ask Zhu Yun to prove it. Then the only option is to take out the relics. And what Zhu Yun said just now, that he learned Yan Laoxi's method of making alchemy and making utensils, must be a handwritten copy of his experience in this regard. Otherwise it would not be called a relic. Sorry, Lian Nishang could hold it up and put it down, cupped his hands towards Zhu Yun, and then said, in that case, you can practice here with peace of mind. I will tell my master about your identity, and he must also I won't embarrass you anymore. Zhu Yun couldn't help but be surprised. If Lian Nishang was doing it for Yan Laoxi's sake, he would understand. But Elder Dan, a powerful man at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, would give face to the dead Yan Laoxi? Zhu Yun didn't believe it. But Zhu Yun had never heard Huo Qinjue talk about the relationship between them, so it seemed that he was not of a sufficient level. Simply, Zhu Yun got wise in his anxiety and said, refining fairy, no. I just want to practice quietly. I just need fairy refining to know. Lian Nishang frowned and glanced at Zhu Yun again. In this way, at most it will cause trouble for me, and I need to keep an eye on Zhu Yun at all times to prevent him from being poisoned by Master's fire dragon pill. But other than that, she had no other choice. In desperation, She had no choice but to nod and agree. She just couldn't tell Zuyun the other thoughts in her mind. Then let it be like this, Lian Nishang sighed and said, you can change the fire dragon pill back. In fact, there is nothing wrong with the fire dragon pill. It just adds some soul-nourishing elixir. As long as you don't follow the master alone, nothing will happen in the alchemy cave. You also told Huo Maoang, remember? Zuyun was overjoyed, he finally got it done. However, the other main ingredient in the fire dragon pill is to nourish the soul. This was far beyond his expectation. While they were confused, the fire formation that surrounded the two people suddenly dispersed out of thin air. The two of them were only 2 steps apart, so they were extremely close. And from the side, a female voice exclaimed, Nishang, you had a private meeting with a male cultivator in broad daylight. Have you considered my brother's feelings? At the same time, a fierce palm movement suddenly swept towards Zuyun, overwhelming the sky and the earth. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 495. When Zuyun was about to use the secret of immortality to get out of the way first, he didn't expect that Lian Nishang's reaction was faster. Xianxia, it's not what you think. I saw that Lian Nishang danced with both hands, and a flame rose from his feet, quickly forming its essence, exactly the same as the previous fire escape of Elder Elixir. Boom! The palm force struck at this moment, hitting the fire shield with a loud noise. The feet vibrated, and even Zuyun felt the power. He squinted his eyes and then looked up. She is also a girl with a delicate face, but her strength has reached its peak in the late stage of pill formation. However, facing the fire shield condensed by Lian Nishang, there is nothing you can do. Although they are in the same realm, compared to Lian Nishang, their strength is slightly inferior. But Zuyun's eyes quickly turned to the other person next to the girl. He has sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes, a high bridge of nose, and his white clothes show off his aura, with a hint of restrained masculinity. Behind his left hand, his right hand was gently shaking a folding fan. He seemed to be a handsome little scholar, but Zuyun knew that he was not. This is an extremely dangerous person. Xianxia's attack failed and she stopped attacking. However, she became even more angry and said, okay, Nishang, you still stand up for him? My brother is already standing here. You. The look of him hating iron but not steel made Zuyun more interested in the brother he mentioned. He took another look and suddenly discovered that the fan in his hand. It's almost exactly the same as what I got from the Lord of Backfire City. Strange, he has it too. Look at my brother again and I'll dig out your dog's eyes. The girl Xianxia saw Zuyun looking to her side and said angrily. In his opinion, Zuyun's outfit showed that he was just an ordinary disciple. This is why she is not angry that Lian Nishang not only stands so close to Zuyun, but also defends Zuyun. Zhong Xianxia. Lian Nishang gave a sweet shout and said, I told you, you misunderstood. This is my master's new disciple who has been admitted to the Dan Pavilion, and I am telling him the rules of the Dan Pavilion. Ah! Zhong Xianxia was about to curse angrily but couldn't close her open mouth. If it were a Dan Pavilion disciple, she really couldn't do anything. Moreover, this is Dan Pavilion territory. Didn't that slap Mr. Dan in the face? Nishang, why would Elder Dan accept someone from the Foreign Affairs Hall as his disciple? Why, does he look down on me? At this time, the man finally spoke. However, the tone was light and he was obviously joking. Zhong Jiangjio, Lian Nishang said dissatisfied, I have nothing to do with you. Everything is just wishful thinking of the sect master and you. I, Lian Nishang, do not need a Taoist companion. As soon as these words came out, Zuyun suddenly realized. Daking, I was beaten. Is this the relationship between these 3 people? However, this relationship seems a bit complicated. Lian Nishang mentioned the sect master. For a moment, Zhu Yun became a little troubled. He knew very well how Zhong Jiangjao looked at him just now. Although he didn't show any anger, his condescending demeanor clearly reflected the word arrogance in his name. And the biggest headache is probably Xianxia. When she arrived, before she said a word, she immediately took action. If it weren't for Lian Nishang's quick reaction, he might have shown some skills again. In this way, he is more likely to be remembered by these two people. Nishang, the sect leader, proposed marriage, and Elder Yi also agreed. The parents' orders, the matchmaker's words, this matter. Zhong Jiangjao took a step forward, turned a blind eye to Zhu Yun, stood directly in front of Lian Nishang and said with a smile, "This matter is non-negotiable." Lian Nishang sneered and said, "Zhong Jiangjao, and Yingxia. We just grew up together and practiced together. In my eyes, we should be half-brothers and sisters. If you talk about this again, don't blame me for being ruthless in practicing Nishang." After saying that, she waved her left hand and held a small knife. At the same time, he raised his right hand, and it seemed that he was about to cut off his robe and sever his righteousness. "Nishang, please tell me if you have something to say, don't be impulsive." Zhong Yingxia hurriedly stepped forward, took Lian Nishang's left hand with both hands, and pressed it down. Then she turned to Zhong Jiangjao and kept winking. Zhong Jiangjao couldn't help but feel defeated, but he didn't give in and stopped talking. However, his eyes turned to Zhu Yun. It seemed as if he wanted to vent all his anger on Zhu Yun. Lian Nishang's beautiful eyebrows tightened and she said, "Zhong Jiangjao. If you want to use Huo Qinjua, you are challenging my bottom line. I don't care whether you are the young sect master or not." Hearing this, Zhu Yun secretly thought, it's not good. Zhong Jiangjao. Just by seeing his words and actions for a moment, he knew that he was arrogant. Lian Nishang's words were just going to set fire to me. Sure enough, Zhong Jiangjao jumped up like a fox whose tail was stepped on, turned back angrily, and his eyes suddenly shot out two flames. Lian Nishang's mistake was that she said these words in front of Zhu Yun. This made Zhong Jiangjao feel that he had lost all face. Zhu Yun also sighed secretly in his heart. It seems that Lian Nishang is not straightforward or fearless, but brainless. When he was walking in the mortal world, he heard a few words and locked his eyes on her white neck. Where to look? Who would have thought that there is a glaring Zhong Yingxia nearby? She had been waiting for the opportunity to cause trouble, but she didn't expect Zhu Yun to come to her door. As soon as she finished speaking, she raised her hand and slapped Zhu Yun on the cheek. Zhu Yun didn't expect it, and Lian Nishang didn't expect it even more. "Zhong Yingxia, what are you doing?" Lian Nishang was shocked. Zhong Yingxia's realm was equivalent to hers, but this Huo Qinjua was only in the early stage of Jindan. This slap would knock her head crooked. But at this time, one of her hands was held down by Zhong Yingxia, and the other hand was blocked by Zhong Yingxia. She wanted to help Zhu Yun block this attack, but she was unable to do so. But Zhu Yun had a lot of experience, and he never had the habit of relying on others. Although this palm was fierce, it was nothing in his eyes. He moved slightly, and with a clever flash, the mysterious footwork of Chang Shengju was easily avoided under the blessing of chaos power. But because of this, Zhong Jiangjiao's eyes tightened, and he did it. What a mysterious body movement, you can actually dodge my sister's palm. Then let me see what else you can do. After saying that, he closed the folding fan and pointed it at Zhu Yun. Zhong Jiangjao. Lian Nishang's face changed. She was stronger than Zhong Yingxia, but Zhong Jiangjao was stronger than herself. She shouted angrily, but it was too late. Because after seeing her brother's move, Zhong Yingxia also used force in her hand to hold her hand steadily. "Nishang, this kid just stared at your chest. If you don't teach this kind of scoundrel a lesson, how can you live in peace in the future?" As soon as these words came out, Lian Nishang's cheeks quickly became red. Just then I remembered that Xianxia's angry shout just now was to scold Zuyun to look at where. But this kid. Before, when we were in the fire trap array together, at such a close distance, he didn't look sideways. Just when her thoughts were in a mess, Zhong Jiangjao and Zuyun had already fought together on the other side. To be precise, it was Zhong Jiangjao who was attacking alone, and Zuyun was dodging on his own. Zhong Jiangjao was very imposing, and although he only held a folding fan in his hand, he was extremely fast, and every attack was aimed at Zuyun's weak points. But when he was about to hit, Zuyun would dodge it. Boy, what a skill! A mere disciple of the Foreign Affairs Hall actually has such a mysterious body movement? Are you a spy from the MaleProtagonist sect? Zhong Jiangjiao's eyes were like knives, but his mind was very clear, and he directly put a big hat on Zuyun's head. At that time, even if it was not the case, the worst that could happen was that he had misjudged it. But the purpose of teaching Zuyun a lesson was achieved. Zuyun's heart was as clear as a mirror, and he didn't say a word, and he dodged Zhong Jiangjao on his own. But Zhong Jiangjao was aggressive and said coldly, "Why, you don't say anything? Have I seen through you? Zhong Jiangjao, don't spit blood. Huo Chenjua has always been a disciple of the Foreign Affairs Hall. If there was a problem with his identity, how could my master accept him into the Dan Pavilion?" Lian Nishang finally remembered and mentioned the name of Dan Lao. "Nishang, you have been deceived, and Dan Lao must have been deceived too. I think my brother's guess is right. Look at his mysterious steps, which are strange and unpredictable. Even if he is not from the MaleProtagonist sect, he must be from another sect." Xianxia's eyes also flashed with a trace of malice. Didn't she know what Zhong Jiangjao meant? He is not, he is from our Hualong sect. Moreover, he is. In a hurry, Lian Nishang almost blurted out the identity that Zuyun had deceived her about. But unexpectedly, she was interrupted by a burst of shouting. "Young sect master, even if there are problems with my disciples of Dan Pavilion, this elder should come and teach them in person, right?" As he spoke, a figure appeared out of thin air in front of Zuyun. At the same time, boundless pressure appeared out of thin air and immediately enveloped everyone. No matter how clever Zuyun's body movements were, he was trapped in the same place and could not move. Not to mention Zhong Jiangjao and his sister and Lian Nishang. "Elder Dan, I am helping the Fire Dragon sect to clean up the mess." Zhong Jiangjao was stubborn and said forcefully, even though he could not make any more moves at this time. "Humph," Elder Dan snorted coldly and said, "Young sect master, you are not qualified to teach my disciples of Dan Pavilion, but this elder is of the same generation as the sect master, so there is no problem in teaching you a lesson, right?" As soon as these words came out, Zhong Jiangjiao's face changed. This is, really. To be honest, he, Zhong Jiangjao, also broke the rules of the sect. "Sorry, Elder Dan, I was abrupt." Zhong Jiangjao immediately gave in. "No need to see you off." Dan Lao also gave him a way out, flicked his sleeves, and the pressure was gone. Zhong Jiangjao pulled Xianxia up and fled away. Zuyun smiled bitterly in his heart, and then he heard Dan Lao's extremely cold voice. "Boy, your body movement is indeed mysterious. I have lived for thousands of years, but I have never heard of it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 496. Zuyun felt extremely helpless. Bullshit mysterious body movement. You haven't seen it, that's because it's the body movement of a mortal warrior. It's strange that you have seen it. But now, how to explain it? Should I Bring up the name of Yan Laoxi? But if I say this, I won't be able to ask Lian Nishang to help me conceal it in the future, and then I will be pitiful. It's really tangled. He secretly glanced at Lian Nishang, but this little action, in the eyes of the nascent soul stage, was invisible and was discovered immediately. Nishang, is this body movement related to you? Although Dan Lao has been comprehending the way of alchemy in the cave, he is actually very clear about everything that happened in the outside world. He also knew that Lian Nishang used the fire trap array. However, he didn't know what happened in the array. This array was not researched by him, so no matter how powerful he is, he can only break the array by force. At this time, seeing Zhu Yun's eyes, he thought he was asking for help from Lian Nishang, that's what he thought. Lian Nishang opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. Because she thought that this body technique was given to Zhu Yun by Yan Laoxi. And Zhu Yun said in person that he didn't want anyone, including his master, to know that Zhu Yun was a relative of Yan Laoxi. Forget it, if you don't want to say it, it's fine. Who would have thought that Dan Lao didn't care at all, and waved his hand casually, saying, you should learn less of these unorthodox methods from your second master. The formation is well learned, but this body technique is like chicken ribs. After that, he looked at Zhu Yun and said disdainfully, Xianxia dare not make a big noise in Dan Pavilion, otherwise he will open his folding fan and you will definitely die. Practice well and don't cause trouble for me here. After that, Dan Lao wanted to go back to the cave. Before Zhu Yun could catch his breath, he heard Lian Nishang shouting, Master, disciple. Do you want me to cancel your engagement with Xianxia? Dan Lao knew what she was thinking and stopped to ask. Yes, master. Lian Nishang lowered her head and said shyly, you know, the young master and I were originally like brothers and sisters, but when I met her just now, I felt that she was narrow-minded, so. Nishang, Dan Lao sighed and said, it doesn't matter if a cultivator is narrow-minded. As long as he treats you well and helps you with your future cultivation, it's fine. This matter was discussed between the master and cannot be withdrawn. Don't mention it again in the future, the master knows it. Lian Nishang felt very aggrieved. It was not until Dan Lao disappeared into the cave that she looked up at Zhu Yun and said faintly, Huo Qinjua, do you think people can escape fate? Zhu Yun was puzzled and scratched his head. After a little thought, he knew what she meant. He could only say helplessly, Fairy Lian, cultivating immortals is against the will of heaven, what do you think? Against the will of heaven. Lian Nishang muttered these two words in her mouth, and her voice became smaller and smaller. Fire Dragon Sect, Young Sect Master Hall. I'm so angry. Xianxia, who had just returned, smashed the furnishings in the house. The ground was full of porcelain fragments. After a while, feeling that she had vented enough, Xianxia said, Brother, are you mistaken? Lian Nishang is such a person, she is always protective, so she can't like the disciple from the Foreign Affairs Hall. Do you think I'm jealous? Xianxia raised his head, his eyes were red, and he looked like he wanted to eat people. Where was the elegant temperament of a handsome scholar? Even the folding fan was thrown on the ground and mixed with the porcelain fragments. Isn't it? Xianxia blinked her eyes. If not, why would her brother be so angry? The entire Fire Dragon sect, from the Internal Affairs Hall onwards, all knew that the recent happy event in the sect was that he and Lian Nishang had made an engagement. The wedding date was set after the end of the Heavenly Book Secret Realm. Superficial. Xianxia sneered and said, women are nothing more than playthings to me. I chose Lian Nishang only because she has a single fire spirit root, and absorbing her essence will be of great help to my impact on the nascent soul. What? Xianxia was shocked beyond words, her beautiful eyes were full of horror. Although she had just acted in an extreme way, she still had a good relationship with Lian Nishang. At this time, she could not believe such ruthless and cold words from Xianxia. Sister, remember, cultivating immortals should not be trapped by the 7 emotions and 6 desires. In the future, if you want to choose a Taoist partner, you must choose one who can help you. Otherwise, no matter how good the Taoist partner is to you, what's the use? These words completely overturned Xianxia's 3 views, and she couldn't calm down for a long time. After a long while, she asked, "Does Dad know that you think so?" "Of course Dad knows. Otherwise, how dare I set my sights on Lian Nishang? Even the dual cultivation method of absorbing Yuan Yin was taught to me by him. However, this method is only passed on to men, not women, otherwise, you can do it too." Xianxia's face flushed, and she said, "Brother, but, can't you find another female cultivator with a single fire spiritual root? Why must you choose Nishang? Other female cultivators?" Zhongjiangjao sneered and said, "How many female cultivators at the peak of Jindan and with a single fire spiritual root do you think are in the Peepa realm? Even if there are, they are probably regarded as treasures by the sect, right? How could it be my turn?" Zhongyingxia nodded secretly. It was true, and she couldn't help but feel a little entangled in her heart. Zhongjiangjao continued, "But sister, you must never tell Lian Nishang about this, otherwise, you will be the sinner of our Zhong family. Think about it, that bitch Lian Nishang just now even wanted to cut ties with us. It shows that we are not completely in your heart. Only those of us named Zhong are a family." At this time, Zhongyingxia's mind was completely confused, and she had no independent thoughts at all. Although she felt that there was something inappropriate in her words, she still nodded. Indeed, her surname is Zhong and Nishang's surname is Lian. Okay, we won't go to see Lian Nishang in the short term, but the secret realm of the heavenly book and her party should be the last chance. By then, let's see who can protect her. After I take away her Yuan Yin, then I can become the biggest winner in the secret realm of the heavenly book. After saying that, the sinister laughter rang out. Zhongyingxia let out a long sigh, not knowing what to think. Because she also has a single type of fire spirit root, and is also at the peak of the late stage of pill formation. Dan Pavilion. Huo Maoang faintly wakes up. He always thought that Zuyun was guarding outside the house, so he was immersed in his mind and fully practiced healing. "Senior brother Chinjua, I'm fine." He exhaled a breath of turbidity. Not only did he feel that his injuries were completely recovered, but he was also refreshed. The spiritual fire in his danshan also began to show signs of igniting. This made him very happy and he couldn't wait to tell Zuyun about his condition. But after calling several times, he got no response, so he stood up and pushed the door open. Not far away, 2 figures were very close to each other. Facing the setting sun, the shadows are lengthened. Huo Maoang took a breath of cold air and said to himself, "Senior brother Chinjua is so capable. I just practiced for a while, and I actually got the Lian Nishang. This is done once and for all. From now on when I go out, I will say that the Taoist monk who refines the fairy is my senior brother. Who dares to mess with me?" Thinking of this, he shouted loudly, "Senior brother Chinjua, refine the fairy. I have completed my cultivation." The 2 of them actually didn't do anything, and even maintained an extremely subtle distance. Lian Nishang means I have many thoughts, so I stand here quietly. Zuyun was at a loss and felt that nothing was appropriate, so he simply stood with Lian Nishang. But who would have thought that Huo Maoang would misunderstand this scene? That tone revealed a different meaning, and of course Zuyun heard it. He also took the opportunity to turn around and ran towards Huo Maoang. He lowered his voice and said angrily, "Stop chewing your tongue, be careful to attract fire." I understand." Huo Maoang responded in a low voice, and at the same time made a motion to sew his mouth. But the look in Zuyun's eyes was filled with admiration. Zuyun became even more angry and said, "Don't think so wildly. Fairy Lian is the young sect leader's fiancée, and she is engaged. If you want to die, don't drag me with you." Huo Maoang's eyes suddenly widened and he said, "Senior brother Xianxia, you. Me what?" Zuyun narrowed his eyes and asked. "You're so awesome. You can get me married even if I have an engagement. Junior brother, I'm convinced. From now on, I, Huo Maoang, will only follow your lead, and my respect for you is like the waves of a river. Get out of here." Zuyun shouted angrily, flew over with his kick, and kicked him back into the wooden house in anger. "Huo Xianxia, what are you doing?" Dan Pavilion disciples, no fighting among themselves. Who would have thought that Lian Nishang would also suddenly fly over, dressed in fiery red, with a face as cold as ice, and a looming anger. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 497. What a stubborn person. I don't know what Zhongjiangjao likes about you. Zuyun muttered in his heart. Any normal person would be able to tell that he and Huo Maoang were joking. Even the kick he just kicked was useless, and Huo Maoang didn't use his spiritual power to resist. But verbally, Zuyun could only explain, saying, Fairy Lian, you misunderstood. Junior brother Maoang and I were just joking. Huo Maoang also climbed up from the house. He didn't bother to dust himself off and said anxiously, "Yes, Fairy Lian, we were just joking. Look, we don't even have spiritual power." Lian Nishang looked at Huo Maoang and then at Zuyun, with a slight doubt on his face. Seeing this, Zuyun felt a little helpless. After all, this Lian Nishang is probably a girl who has never seen the world. Previously, he was only focused on how to deceive Lian Nishang, but he didn't pay attention to this. Now that I think about it, this is really possible. Also, if not for this, he wouldn't be able to achieve his goal so easily, right? Don't joke like this in the future. If other disciples see it, they will laugh at our Dan Pavilion. After giving the order, Lian Nishang's expression tightened again and she said, "Master said he would come out in 3 days, right? In the past few days, you should practice well and don't wander around, remember?" Huo Maoang nodded repeatedly, "Yes, Fairy Lian." Zuyun disagreed. He knew better and knew the meaning of Lian Nishang's words, so he said, "Lian Fairy, just practicing is meaningless. We want to learn to refine the fire dragon pill." He was thinking longer term. Lian Nishang glanced at Zuyun strangely, and then said, "Refining fire dragon pill is not difficult, the main difficulty lies in the required materials. If you want to learn, I can give you the pill recipe, but..." "But what?" the two said in unison. "Although you have joined the Dan Pavilion, your identity plates have not been changed. If you want to learn, you have to wait until the master comes out and recreates it for you to be considered a true disciple of the Dan Pavilion. Furthermore, the master has not accepted you as a disciple, so you also it would be inappropriate for ordinary Dan Pavilion disciples to study rashly, so we should wait until the master comes out of seclusion." Zuyun understood the meaning of Lian Nishang. There was indeed a difference between Dan Pavilion disciples and Dan Lao's disciples. The former is considered to be of the same generation as Lian Nishang, but an ordinary disciple is equivalent to a handyman in the Dan Pavilion. He did not dwell on this, but said, "Well, Fairy Lian, if we join the Dan Pavilion, won't we lose all the benefits?" "Benefit?" Lian Nishang chuckled and thought that this fire transformation was a bit interesting, so why did he think about the benefits? It's already the greatest benefit that master doesn't refine you into realm-breaking elixirs. Thinking of this, Lian Nishang felt upset again. Just because the breaking realm pill was refined by her. Joining the Dan Pavilion, being protected by the Dan Pavilion, and being above the disciples of the Internal Affairs Hall, isn't this considered a benefit? She waved her hand, replied absent-mindedly, and then said to Zuyun, "You come with me." I. Zuyun stared at himself and pointed at himself. "Yes, I will take you somewhere." She thought that if she went to meet the second master, she might be able to help her resolve her doubts. "Fairy Lian, what about me?" Huo Maoang wasn't stupid either. It seemed like there were benefits to taking him out, so he asked quickly. "You stay here and don't run around if you have nothing to do. I'll take Huo Chinjua to a place, if something happens." With that said, he turned around and left. Zuyun only thought about it for a moment and then hurriedly followed. It was a rare opportunity to finally be able to visit the Fire Dragon sect with this temporarily unreliable backer. Seeing the two people leaving one after another, Huo Maoang returned to the house after a long time and murmured, "Humph, Huo Chinjua, he said that he didn't get into Lian Nishang, and he didn't teach me the skill. Fairy Lian, where are you taking me?" Zuyun originally thought that Lian Nishang would take him to the inside of the Fire Dragon sect, but he did not expect that after all these twists and turns, he would go around to the back of the Fire Dragon mountain. Looking at the direction of the mountain road, it seems that we are going to the bottom of the valley. I have never heard of Fire Dragon transformation saying this. I will take you to see my master. Lian Nishang was in a slightly better mood at this time and said easily. Zuyun looked surprised. "You, master? Isn't Elder Dan in retreat to study the way of alchemy?" "It's my second master." Lian Nishang's eyes turned into a crescent moon smile as he said, "The master mainly teaches me alchemy and cultivation. The rest of my skills were taught by my second master. However, the two masters didn't like each other, and they often had fights, which lasted for several days. But every time they were evenly matched." "Oh." Zuyun's eyes lit up. "It's not about the strength of this so-called second master. Rather, what Lian Nishang said was the other means." He immediately thought of the trapped fire array. "This trapped formation is very good. Can I still lie to you?" Lian Nishang chuckled and led Zuyun all the way down, finally reaching the bottom of the valley. Entering the valley, the scene in front of you also changes. The Fire Dragon sect is located in the vein of fire. Although there are some plants growing on the entire mountain, it is still a little bleak as far as the eye can see. In a place like this, without special treatment, even elixirs would find it difficult to survive. Of course, except for elixirs that are of the fire type. But the valley in front of him made Zuyun feel like he was suddenly back in the Lingjian sect. A clear stream passes through the valley, with gurgling and tinkling water. After the stream bypassed a wide medicinal garden, it flowed into the stone wall in the distance of the valley, sank into the ground, and turned into a dark river. In addition, the whole valley was full of greenery, and the ground underfoot was all trimmed lawns. There was a cooler feeling in the air. Obviously, the whole valley was in a formation. Perhaps it blocked the fire spirit power of Hualong Mountain, or diluted the fire spirit power. Otherwise, how could these ordinary plants grow so lushly? "Master, are you there?" Standing at the entrance of the valley, Lian Nishang called out in a delicate voice. "Come in." In the valley, a vicissitudes of life came from a pavilion. Female cultivator. Zuyun was slightly surprised, and saw Lian Nishang had already stepped into the valley. He hurriedly followed and walked all the way to the pavilion. Only then did he realize that the pavilion looked empty, but when he got closer, it changed again. A woman in plain clothes was writing on a piece of white silk. Zuyun looked at it. This talisman didn't look like a talisman, nor did it look like a formation. However, he couldn't help but get caught up in it, wondering whether it was a formation or a talisman. "Nichang, why did you bring a disciple from the Foreign Affairs Hall?" Suddenly, the female voice sounded again, bringing Zuyun back to his senses. He was secretly shocked. Why was he so careless? but he was also glad that he didn't get too curious and use the breaking void spirit eye technique to see. Master, I'm just upset. This is the disciple of the Dan Pavilion that the master just accepted. He's a little interesting, so I brought him here to meet you. Ha ha ha, the female cultivator laughed heartily twice without any restraint or pretense. She set her eyes on Zuyun, looked at him for a few times, and said with a smile, "It's really interesting." "Master, did you see it?" Zuyun didn't know what was going on, but Lian Nichang asked with a happy look. "Of course, Nichang, you said, this is your master's disciple?" she asked easily. No, Lian Nichang waved her hands, "he is just a disciple of Dan Pavilion. Master didn't say he would accept him as a disciple." But what?" The woman smiled. Lian Nichang leaned forward and whispered, "Master wants to use her as a medicine to refine a realm-breaking pill for me." She used the sound transmission method to say this. She was afraid that Zuyun would hear it. Unexpectedly, the woman showed a meaningful smile, without any disguise, and smiled at Lian Nichang. "Why, do you like this boy?" Lian Nichang was shocked and shouted, "Master, why do you say that?" Even Zuyun was dumbfounded. This so-called second master seems a little bit improper. "Do I need to say this?" The woman teased, "If not, why did you bring him here?" "Master, you..." Lian Nichang was speechless, but heard the woman wave her hand. Zuyun felt a breeze on his face, and then his face was cold. Seeing Lian Nichang suddenly reaching out to cover her red lips, Zuyun was even more surprised, and he quickly touched his forehead. The talisman of changing heaven and earth was gone. In this way, he revealed his original appearance. You. Lian Nichang finally came back to her senses, pointed at Zuyun, and trembled for a while but couldn't say a word. Zuyun even took several steps back, with one hand behind his back, ready to take out the chaos sword at any time, and the other hand was in a palm gesture. If there is any mistake, he will use the chaos palm. At this time, the smile on the woman's face suddenly froze. She stood up, and shouted sternly, "Who are you? Why do you want to sneak into my fire dragon sect?" "I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 498. Zuyun's face was stern, ready to take action at any time. In the midst of the lightning and flint, Lian Nichang suddenly took a step forward and stood between Zuyun and the woman. "Second master, he has his own reasons and did not sneak into our fire dragon sect." Upon hearing this, both of them were stunned, and the atmosphere relaxed slightly. Zuyun Zhen was thinking, maybe the silly woman Lian Nichang thought that she was still a relative of Yan Laoxi, so she pretended to be fake, right? What was surprising was that the woman suddenly laughed. "It looks good when you smile." At the same time, the terrifying pressure from the nascent soul stage also dissipated between heaven and earth. Zuyun finally realized that he could still move just now. This shows that the two masters who refine Nichang have no intention of harming him at all. "Nichang, silly girl, my master said that you have a crush on him, and you still deny it? After a little trial, you will show your clues." Lian Nichang suddenly choked up. She couldn't help but glance at Zuyun, her face covered with blush. It was an unfamiliar face, but it looked much more pleasing to the eye than Huo Qinjua's original face. "Master, did you do this on purpose?" Lian Nichang actually looked like a little girl, feeling shy and a little angry. "Ha ha ha," the woman chuckled, and then said, "Then tell me, my teacher, what is the reason for this kid?" After saying that, she glanced at Zuyun lightly again, then quickly withdrew her gaze and placed it on Lian Nichang with a doting look on her face. "Master, actually, he is a relative of Yan Laoxi, but he didn't want to cause trouble to Yan Laoxi, so he disguised himself." Lian Nichang didn't know if this was the case. She felt unsure, and her words were coy and as quiet as a mosquito's voice. Is that so? The moment the woman raised her head, her eyes suddenly narrowed and focused on Zhu Yun's eyes, as if this way she could tell whether Zhu Yun was lying. That's right. Zhu Yun actually regarded Yan Laoxi as his master. Although their friendship is still shallow and they have only known each other for a short time. But what Yan Laoxi did was very popular with him. The woman smiled slightly, but suddenly turned serious. This change of face is like the change of the sky. She just heard her say in a cold voice, "Boy, do you know the consequences of lying to me?" Zhu Yun took a deep breath. No matter whether this woman was lying to him or not, he knew that he could not deny it no matter what. "Senior, I don't dare." Snored. Unexpectedly, the woman snorted coldly, then reached out and grabbed Zhu Yun suddenly. This sudden grab made Zhu Yun's expression change. But he was alert for a moment, and when the woman's shoulder moved slightly, he used the thunder escape technique without hesitation. The figure flashed past, and Zhu Yun was already 200 steps away. Interesting. A strange color flashed in the woman's eyes. She made a magic formula and trapped Lian Nishang in place. She even sealed her mouth so that she could not speak. This series of actions only took a moment. Then, she quietly stood up and danced with her bare hands. The color of the whole valley changed and became dark in the blink of an eye. Countless stars fell on the ground, and Zhu Yun was surprised to find that the night sky beneath his feet had also turned into a night sky. It's like being in the universe yet suspended in the void. This is a formation. Such a mysterious and majestic formation was an eye-opener for Zhu Yun, but at the same time he had to deal with it cautiously. But the woman no longer took action, but said calmly, "Your escape technique is good. When you use it, thunder spiritual power will appear. Then I want to see if you can escape my star-shifting formation." After saying that, the woman's figure started to glow, and finally turned into little stars, submerged into the entire night sky, and then turned into thousands of stars. This. Zhu Yun was astonished. Such methods had long exceeded his understanding of the Tao of Dual. I clearly know that I am in a valley, but the starry sky is so real, as if I am immersed in it. No, it should be really like being in the void. How is this done? He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Soon, I figured something out. This woman should have no intention of hurting him. Otherwise, just based on his attainments or state of formation, he will be wiped out in a snap. The gap between the nascent soul stage and the nascent soul stage was not something he could face head-on. Even if he had the means to kill the nascent soul stage, he could only find the 1 in a million opportunity to seize the opportunity, and he had to be surprised. And obviously, it is obviously impossible to kill the woman at this time. Just because you are completely under the control of the other party. Since he has no intention of killing me, then he just wants to test my skills. After figuring out the key, Zhu Yun also calmed down. Since I want to give it a try, I might as well try it out and show you my true skills. Of course, this real ability is only based on the formation. Zhu Yun was a little jealous of the trapped fire formation. Maybe after he showed it, he might have a chance to get used to it. Zhu Yun calmed down his mind, concentrated his energy, and began to search for the patterns of the star movement formation with his naked eyes. Only by finding the formation pattern can we find the rest of the formation eyes. If you want to break the formation, remember the positions of all the secondary formation eyes and the main formation eyes, and then use the formation patterns to figure out the mystery of the formation. There are thousands of formations in the world, and they never change without departing from their origin. And the reason why there is no need to break the void spirit eye technique is actually of great importance. When it comes to leading to the spiritual world, Zhu Yun still has a good idea. Considering the woman's peak state in the late nascent soul stage, there is no guarantee that she will not take advantage of it. Zhu Yun has seen this kind of thing a lot. As the saying goes, Loyalty is just betrayal, but the chips are not enough. Don't kill him, it's just that in the eyes of the woman, Zuyun has not reached the level of touching his interests. In the pavilion. Master, what are you? Lian Nishang had obviously seen the Dozhuan scene shifting formation. After the woman unlocked the restriction on her body, she hurriedly asked. Nishang, this kid may not seem to be at a high level, but he's much more pleasing to the eye than Zhong Jiangjio. The woman said with a smile. Master. This disciple has never thought about getting married or having a Taoist companion. Lian Nishang knew that Zuyun could not hear these words, and his expression was no longer so excited. What's the rush? The woman smiled and said, whether this boy is a relative of Yan Laoxi or not, at least he will be of great help to you on your next trip to the secret realm. Ah! Lian Nishang was a little surprised and let out a sweet cry. She couldn't imagine how Zuyun could be related to the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. Zhong Jiangjio and Zhong Yingxia will also enter the secret realm of the Book of Heaven, you know that, right? Master, our fire dragon sect has 4 places this time. The other one, I heard from Master, has not been decided yet. The woman nodded and said, the last spot is in the hands of my master. Master, what do you mean, you want him to go? How is this possible? He is only in the early stage of pill formation, hey, no, he is in the middle stage. Zuyun had previously used the heaven-changing talisman to disguise himself as Hu Qinjue, along with his realm. But after the woman removed the talisman, his own realm was naturally revealed. Master, all the major sects are eager to send all the peak late-stage pill-forming people in. Moreover, there are no rules in the secret realm. If you let him in, aren't you asking him to die? Lian Nishang couldn't help but worry. Ha ha ha, you still said you didn't like him. The woman teased, squinting in her colorful clothes, Master. Okay, okay, I won't tease you anymore, let's get down to business. The woman smiled and said, this boy, just the escape technique he just performed is extraordinary. In addition, he also has this kind of character. He is not afraid of things. Even if he is facing me at the nascent soul stage, he still wants to fight back at any time. Do you think, if you show your kindness to him and ask him to protect you in a secret place, don't you think this is a good bodyguard? Master, do you think she still wants to fight back? Lian Nishang didn't hear the last half of the sentence clearly and was completely shocked. That's right. When I took off his heaven-changing talisman, he put his left hand in front of his chest, which was a palm move. I'm just a teacher, so I can't understand what the palm technique is for the moment. But come to think of it, this kid's escape technique, it was a mysterious and unusual move. In addition, he held his right hand behind his back and held an empty fist. He was probably ready to take out the magic weapon at any time. Seeing his fist posture, the magic weapon this kid wanted to take should be a sword. Master, you actually know so clearly. Lian Nishang was shocked again. At that time, she didn't see any reaction from Zuyun at all. I just feel that Zuyun should be frightened. Silly girl, my master is in the nascent soul stage after all. And he has been practicing the soul method, so his sensitivity is naturally far beyond that of ordinary people. At such a close distance, my every move could not be seen more clearly. Otherwise, if you are a blind man, how can you know that he is pretending? If Zuyun were here, he would definitely be shocked beyond measure. This woman is actually blind. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 499. Master, you are blind, but your heart is not blind. Lian Nishang said quickly. There is no need to worry, Nishang. What difference does it make if I have these eyes as my master now? Moreover, if you are blind, you will not be trapped by hallucinations. What do you think? Master said so. Lian Nishang nodded respectfully, thinking that no wonder she could see through the disguise. I can only see with my naked eyes, but my master can see through the microcurrents in the air. Okay, master, I feel that the boy is standing still in the formation. Tell me, what is he doing? The woman chuckled and raised her head. The blind eyes, however, revealed a gaze as if it were real. Master, he just stood there motionless, like a wooden man. Hey, when you first activated this formation, I heard you said that he wanted to use the escape technique. It's strange, why didn't he use the escape technique to escape? Lian Nishang reacted and said in surprise. The woman pondered slightly, raised her brows, and said, is it possible that he wants to break the formation? As soon as he talked about breaking the formation, Lian Nishang suddenly remembered it again and said, Master, in the den pavilion earlier, I trapped him with the fire trap formation, but he didn't panic at all. Could it be that he still understands the formation, right? If he is really a disciple of the fire dragon sect, he cannot understand the formation. The woman's answers were somewhat inappropriate. Master, what do you mean? Lian Nishang was surprised, isn't he a relative of Yan Laoxi? In the fire dragon sect, there are many people who practice formation. But the only ones who can really be considered as understanding the formation are the master and the apprentice present. Even Yan Laoxi doesn't understand formations. It doesn't matter whether it is or not. The woman was open-minded, or in other words, she didn't care about Zhu Yun's identity at all. In the middle stage of pill formation, what kind of trouble can it cause? Even if she could turn it over and turn the fire dragon sect upside down, it wouldn't affect her mood at all. Just because she and the fire dragon sect only have a cooperative relationship. Just a guest elder. Master, I hear what you want, do you want to accept him as your disciple? When Lian Nishang said these words, he was shocked. You are overthinking. Not everyone is qualified to be my disciple. Even though you are as talented as you have only learned a little bit about me. The formation method is so difficult that no one can learn it. What's more, as a teacher, you can still learn a little bit. Is there a talisman? Master, no wonder you don't teach me the Tao of talismans. Lian Nishang said with some self-deprecation. Your temperament is not suitable for drawing talismans. But in this case, this kid is calm, which is quite suitable for drawing talismans. Run when you need to, and hit when you need to fight. The woman's eyes suddenly glowed. Lian Nishang was surprised and said, Master, didn't you say that you have to be patient and learn to draw talisman from an early age? The woman smiled and was about to say something, but her face suddenly tightened and she looked up at Zhu Yun in the formation. Lian Nishang followed and looked over, and then realized that Zhu Yun had moved. However, he did not use the thunder escape technique, nor did he release any spiritual power. Moreover, he walked in the formation with extremely ordinary steps. Master, he is. Lian Nishang watched Zhu Yun take a few steps and then reached his original position. He couldn't help but speak out, but was interrupted by the woman's cold voice. Shut up. Lian Nishang was frightened. She naturally knows the woman's temper. With this tone, he obviously doesn't want to be disturbed. Simply, she kept staring at Zhu Yun. It's a pity that I can't understand Zhu Yun's moves. This boy. But in my ears, I kept hearing Master's murmuring voice. Surprise, amazement and excitement. She even stood up, trembling all over. At this time, Zhu Yun in the formation did not find the correct way to break the formation. Rather, I feel something in my heart. All the formations in the world have their own way, and if there is a way, then there is reason. In the second half of the sentence, I heard Lao Ma say that he only had a little inspiration, and then things got delayed. At this moment, my heart sank and I suddenly thought about it. The Tao of this formation is in the void, in the universe. But in fact, it is in the valley. The way of the stars has the principles of the stars. But in front of me, there are obviously not real stars, so why should I bother to follow thousands of stars to find formation patterns? Even if you find it, it is just the way in the stars, and it will be of no use to you to break the formation. Therefore, the Tao of this array is actually in the valley. So Li is also in the valley. He didn't use his spiritual power, he was like a mortal, and his feet instantly felt like they were on the ground. No, it should have been on solid ground. He walked back and forth several times, seemingly in a disorderly manner, but in fact, Zuyun was trying the feel of his feet. Through the feedback from the solace of his feet, Zuyun had already trampled through the terrain of several steps around. Then, he made an amazing move. I saw Zuyun lift one foot and take off his shoes. Then, take off the shoe of the other foot. He actually started walking barefoot. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. The woman suddenly clapped her hands and shouted three wonderful words. Master, this. In her opinion, Zuyun's behavior was like a fool, and she couldn't see anything wonderful about it. Nichang, my master was a little bit disdainful of this boy at first. Now, just based on his behavior of going barefoot, I'm afraid you won't be worthy of him as your Taoist companion. Ah! Lian Nishang was dumbfounded. I heard that there are fortune tellers in the world who can tell other people's fortunes by reading their palms. Master, are you reading your feet? Don't be surprised. When you are alone, ask this kid. If she is willing to tell you why she did this, then you can ask me again to see if he lied to you. If that kid doesn't lie to you, master, no matter what, I'll protect you as a matchmaker. Lian Nishang's face turned red again, and she simply shut up and stopped talking. Why do the two masters always want to marry me? Am I unable to walk in the world of immortality if I practice alone? Lian Nishang stopped talking, and the woman was happy to be quiet, constantly feeling Zuyun's every move. As Zuyun walked barefoot, he finally closed his eyes. This made the woman shout three wonderful words again. And Lian Nishang actually realized something at this time. Just because the master and the disciple just said that it is easy to be blinded by illusions if you look with your eyes. Suddenly, she became interested in Zuyun again. This guy is not simple. But why would such an extraordinary person hang out in the Foreign Affairs Hall? Doubts came to Lian Nishang's mind again, making her no longer interested in watching Zuyun's every move. All he could think about was, if the second master was really optimistic about Zuyun, why wouldn't he go to the master to intercede and refine him into a realm-breaking elixir? A full half-hour passed. Zuyun was already standing in front of the woman. But at this time, his image was particularly funny. He was holding a shoe in each hand, his eyes still closed. Boy, what's your name? The woman asked lightly with a smile on her lips. Back to senior, my name is Huo Chinjua. Zuyun was very calm and said immediately, and at the same time, he opened his eyes. The name is not important, just let it be fire. The woman chuckled lightly, sat down in her seat, and then said, do you want to live or die? Zuyun frowned. From the previous sentence, it is obvious that the woman knows that she is not a fire creature at all. But identity seems to be unimportant to her, so she doesn't care. Then he asked her if she wanted to live or die, which had more profound meanings. Zuyun said seriously, Senior, of course I want to live. The corner of the woman's mouth curved and she said, if you want to live, there are many ways to live. How do you want to live? Zuyun was surprised and said, Senior, is there a way to live or die? He has asked others several times what kind of death they want. But this is the first time I have heard of this method of living. Of course, the woman said with a smile, you can live in comfort, you can live in freedom, you can live in frustration, you can live in a state of lingering, it's up to you to choose. Zhu Yun's face became solemn. He heard the meaning. Women want to do things on their own. If it goes as she wishes, she can live comfortably and even freely. On the contrary, he might be one of the other types. Senior, please speak clearly. Zhu Yun said seriously. You are very smart. If you want to live comfortably, then become my disciple, learn my skills, enter the secret realm of the Book of Heaven, protect your clothes, and obtain the treasure. Zhu Yun was shocked, he really had to do something. However, what is going on in the secret realm of the heavenly book? Zhu Yun knew that if he refused to be her apprentice, he would obviously not get any answers, so he asked, Senior, do you want me to learn the Tao of Formation? Array. The woman sneered and said, No, I want you to learn the Tao of Talisman. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 500. Fu Dao. Zhu Yun was stunned. From the beginning to the end, he never saw the possibility that the woman wanted to teach him how to draw talismans. It is true that when she first arrived at the pavilion, she drew something on a piece of silk that he could not understand, like a ghost drawing talismans. But just now I said I wanted to test him, and he used the star movement formation again. This was beyond Zhu Yun's expectation. And among the 7 skills Sun Suan Hua taught him, the one he used the most and mastered the best was Fu Dao. Zhu Yun even had 2 books on talismans, fragments of Tianfu and Tao of Talisman obtained from Zhen Wengziu. Even the foundation is very solid. That's right, it's Fu Dao. The woman said calmly, and then said, but judging from your appearance, you seem to be a little unwilling to learn. Zhu Yun shook his head and said, it's not that I don't want to learn, but I feel that I don't need to learn. Hearing this, the woman couldn't help laughing and said, do you think that you can buy talismans? It's like the heaven-changing talisman you used before. Zhu Yun was not surprised that the woman recognized the heaven-changing talisman. After all, she saw through his disguise so easily. Zhu Yun felt that she must have extraordinary abilities in this. But his own talisman has been restricted by his realm. The only way to learn now is to learn more about how to draw talismans, rather than to improve the attainments of talismans. Only after reaching the nascent soul stage can he learn more advanced talismans, spiritual talismans. This is his current state. No matter how hard he learns, he can't do it. What's more, the reason why Zhu Yun is willing to come with Lian Nishang is actually to learn more about formations, such as the trapped fire array. When he heard that, he thought that he had bought the heaven-changing talisman. Zhu Yun couldn't help but be surprised. Can such a mysterious talisman be bought? Little guy, you are very good. I think you are quite suitable for drawing talismans. If you can learn my talisman skills, you can live comfortably. Senior, are you threatening me? Zhu Yun frowned and then said. Why should I threaten you? The woman smiled and said, I can only say yes, I won't protect you. Protect me. Zhu Yun suddenly looked at Lian Nishang, who was standing next to the woman. It was obvious that she still knew something, but she had never told him. Yes, if you have nothing to do with me, what does your life and death have to do with me? Nishang knows very well that that old guy wants to use you as a drug guide. Yin. Upon hearing these 2 words, Zhu Yun's mind exploded with a bang. He couldn't believe that Elder Elixir actually wanted to use people to make elixirs. If this is the case, then there will be a reasonable explanation for some of Mr. Dan's previous behaviors that he could not understand. Is it, Huo Maoang is also Yin? Zhu Yun's chest kept rising and falling, and he asked Lian Nishang. Lian Nishang smiled bitterly and said, to be precise, he is Yin, and you are just an alchemy furnace. Zhu Yun was even more shocked and lost his voice. How can I become a furnace? This statement was completely beyond his understanding. Master said that the fire spirit power in your body is very pure. Huo Chinjua, Master's decision, I dare not disobey, I can only prevent you from swallowing the problematic fire dragon pill. Seeing Zhu Yun's reaction, Lian Nishang couldn't help but lower his head, while Zhu Yun said angrily, but you clearly told me that there is no problem in swallowing those fire dragon pills. You said that the extra main medicine in them is for nourishing for the soul. That's what you said. He is a relative of Yan Laoxi, so the master will naturally not do anything to you. Lian Nishang was also a little excited. Listening to Zhu Yun's tone, she was afraid that Zhu Yun would misunderstand her for some reason. Zhu Yun looked at the woman again and said, Senior, according to your statement, I must not be able to escape the claws of Elder Dan. The woman said calmly, Elder Dan only has Dan in his eyes. Zhu Yun's pupils shrank and asked, I wonder what is in the eyes of seniors. The woman's face was calm, you want to anger me. There is no benefit in irritating you. Since Elder Dan has a purpose in taking me into the Dan Pavilion, then what is the purpose of senior wanting me to learn to draw talismans? I have already said that if you want to live comfortably, you should learn my ability to draw talismans, enter the secret realm of the Book of Heaven, protect your clothes, and then retrieve my treasure. Living comfortably. Zhu Yun chewed carefully and suddenly asked, what about living freely? Live freely, wait until you can retrieve the treasure. Zhu Yun took a deep breath and sneered, so senior, aren't you threatening me? I said, I'm not threatening you. If you can retrieve the treasure, I can save your life, but only within the fire dragon section. That old guy doesn't dare to steal people from my hands. Of course, the premise is that if you can stay in the valley. If you want to be safe outside the valley, you can only be mine. What's the meaning? Zhu Yun squinted his eyes and smelled that he was about to be used. This is not the purpose of coming to the fire dragon sect. Just keep it simple and treat it as a transaction. The woman lowered her eyes and said, I use my ability to draw talismans in exchange for you to protect Ni Chang in the secret realm. Then I use the treasure I retrieved to exchange for your life. Otherwise, no one can protect you, Ni Chang, too. No. Zhu Yun asks Yang Lian Nishang expressionlessly, Fairy Lian, is that so? Lian Nishang was a little panicked, and waved his hands quickly, saying, I don't know, I don't know. I thought Grand Master was not that kind of person, he was so kind to me. Even if he uses you as a medicine guide or an alchemy furnace, it's just for the sake of I refine a special realm-breaking elixir. Before Zhu Yun could react, the woman exclaimed, breaking realm pill. Yes, Master said that he would refine the realm-breaking pill for me and then take it in the secret realm of the heavenly book to break through the nascent soul, and what? The woman stretched out her hand and put it on Lian Nishang's fragrant shoulder, which showed how excited she was at this time. Moreover, she said that if I don't want to fulfill the engagement, I can kill Zhong Jiangjiao and Xianxia in the secret realm. Lian Nishang had already lost a lot of ground during the conversation between Zhu Yun and the second master. Perhaps, this is something that even Elixir himself cannot think of. Things are not that simple, the woman thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, it seems that you must go to the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. She turned to look at Zhu Yun and said, in this way, our deal can be changed. It's still the previous request, I will protect you in the Fire Dragon sect, how about it? Although Zhu Yun was still a little confused, he couldn't figure out the key to this matter. But he knew it very well. This is a huge whirlpool. If he steps into it, he may be unable to help himself. Although he has many means, all of them are to save his life so that he can survive in this dangerous world of immortality. But obviously, the woman is no longer calm and has raised her demands. If you don't agree, I must not even be able to leave this valley today. Because he knows too much. We can only seek skin from a tiger. Then, even if Zuyun doesn't dare to raise the price, he can still get some benefits for himself. He took a step back and said seriously, "Senior, I can promise you, but, I don't want to learn talismans, I want to learn your formation." The woman said sternly, "Boy, don't be ungrateful. One formation cannot be learned overnight. On the contrary, it is a talisman. I have a way to make it quick for you." Both she and Lian Nishang thought Zuyun was so ambitious. Unexpectedly, Zuyun took another step forward, walked to the stone table, took the pen on the table, and turned over the silk. I saw him condense for a moment before quickly writing. After a while, the pattern of the fireball talisman was perfectly presented. "I didn't expect you to be able to draw talismans." The woman was slightly surprised, then shook her head and said, "The elementary talisman is nothing." Zuyun smiled slightly, pulled over the blank side again, dipped in some ink and continued to draw. "Huh? Firebird talisman." This time, Zuyun had no words, but once again drew a fire phoenix talisman. At this time, the woman's face became solemn. She couldn't see with her eyes, and she could only judge by the airflow caused by Zuyun's movements. The three types of runes have one thing in common. Zuyun did it in one go, extremely smoothly. This shows that Zuyun's foundation in Fulu is very solid. However, this does not mean that Zuyun's attainments in talismans may be enough to protect Lian Nishang. "Boy, you surprised me. These days, there are not many monks with such attainments in talismans. However, it is still not enough." "Not enough." Zuyun smiled slightly, then settled down for a moment before picking up the pen again. "I believe this talisman can let women know his strength.